Damn One, by Juan Jeffries. Chapter 1. Juan stepped out of his last college class with mixed emotions. The campus, which had been his second home for years, now felt like a distant memory. It was time to face the real world, a world where responsibilities and bills awaited him. As he drove back to Chicago, he couldn't help but feel a sense of dread mixed with anticipation. The familiar skyline of Chicago loomed ahead, a constant reminder of the challenges that lay in wait. Back home, reality hit hard. Finding a good-paying job was tougher than he had imagined. The only job he could land was as a certified nursing assistant, CNA, earning just $16 an hour. In the expensive city of Chicago, this was barely enough to scrape by, let alone live independently. So, he found himself back in his mother's basement, the same place he had vowed never to return to after leaving for college. The basement was small, cluttered with remnants of his childhood and adolescence. Posters of his favorite bands, old schoolbooks, and random knick-knacks filled the space. Despite the cramped quarters, it was a sanctuary of sorts. A place where he could relax and escape the pressures of his daily grind. However, his mother hated his smoking habit with a passion. Every time she caught him smoking outside, she made a huge fuss about it. Her nagging had become more frequent and overbearing since he returned home. She was always on his case, demanding that he quit smoking and find a better job. Her intentions were good, but her approach only pushed Juan further away. One day, the tension reached its peak. His mother burst into his room, not bothering to knock. "Juan, we need to talk about your future," she demanded. Juan, lying on his bed, pretended not to hear her. "Not now, Mom," he muttered, hoping she would leave. But she was persistent. "Yes, now. You're wasting your life away. That CNA job isn't enough, and you're spending all your money on weed." "It's stupid." Juan could feel the anger rising within him. "Mom, I'm trying, okay? It's not that easy." Her face turned red with frustration. "You need to grow up, Juan. Stop smoking, find a real job, and start taking your life seriously." Unable to take any more, Juan grabbed his keys and stormed out of the house. He drove to his girlfriend Minnie's place, hoping to find some solace. Minnie was 4 years older than him, had her own house, and was doing well for herself. She loved Juan unconditionally and always knew how to calm him down. At Minnie's house, they sat down on the couch, and Juan explained what had happened. Minnie listened attentively, her eyes full of concern. "She's just worried about you, you know," Minnie said softly. "She wants what's best for you." Juan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but it's suffocating. I need to breathe, to figure things out on my own." Minnie placed a comforting hand on his knee. "Why don't you stay here for a while, just until you figure things out?" Juan looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "Of course I'm sure," Minnie replied, smiling warmly. "I love you, Juan. We're in this together." Reluctantly, Juan agreed. He returned home, packed a bag, and drove back to Minnie's house, feeling a mix of relief and guilt. As he entered Minnie's cozy home, he was enveloped by her warmth and the comforting scent of vanilla candles. They spent the evening together, talking and laughing. Minnie's presence was a soothing balm to his troubled mind. "You know I'm always here for you, right?" Minnie said softly, looking into his eyes. Juan nodded, feeling a lump form in his throat. "I know, I just feel like such a failure sometimes." Minnie kissed him tenderly. "You're not a failure. You're just figuring things out. We all do." Their lips met again, this time with more urgency. Juan's hands roamed her body, feeling the softness of her curves. Minnie moaned softly, her body responding to his touch. They moved to the bedroom, clothes discarded along the way. Their passion was intense, each touch, each kiss igniting a fire within them. Juan's hands explored Minnie's body, tracing the contours of her skin. She arched her back, pressing against him, her breath coming in ragged gasps. He kissed her neck, her shoulders moving lower until she was trembling beneath him. Their bodies moved in unison, a symphony of pleasure and desire. They made love with a fervor that left them both breathless and spent. Juan held Minnie close, their bodies entwined as they drifted off to sleep. For the first time in months, Juan slept through the night, waking up refreshed in the unfamiliar but comforting surroundings of Minnie's home. Chapter 2. Upon arriving at Minnie's house, Juan felt a weight lift off his shoulders. For the first time in months, he felt like he had options. Before going inside, he sat in his car, lighting up a joint. The familiar smell and the calming effect of the cannabis helped him relax. Minnie curious as always, noticed his car from the window. She came outside and joined him, sliding into the passenger seat. "Hey, what's going on?" she asked, a warm smile on her face. Juan took a deep drag and exhaled slowly. "Just needed a moment. Things at home are tense." Minnie nodded understandingly. "Want to listen to some beats?" she suggested, reaching for the car stereo. Juan smiled. Music had always been his escape. He often wrote songs to relax, and Minnie loved listening to his creations. She was into poetry and enjoyed collaborating with him. Together, they found a suitable beat and began writing a song. The connection between them was electric, and before long, their creative session turned into a passionate kiss. Juan's hand moved up Minnie's thigh, feeling the smoothness of her skin. She moaned softly, her breath hitching as his fingers brushed against her sensitive spots. Their kisses deepened, becoming more urgent and needy. "Let's go inside," Minnie whispered, her voice husky with desire. Inside the house, their clothes quickly came off. They barely made it to the bedroom before they were all over each other. Minnie pushed Juan onto the bed, straddling him, her eyes dark with lust. She moved her hips slowly at first, then faster, their bodies moving in perfect harmony. Juan's hands gripped her hips, guiding her movements as they lost themselves in the moment. Minnie's cries of pleasure filled the room, driving Juan wild. He flipped her over, taking control, his movements becoming more powerful and intense. Their lovemaking was raw and passionate, leaving them both breathless and trembling. They lay together in the afterglow, their bodies slick with sweat, hearts racing. The next morning, Juan woke up to the smell of fresh coffee. Minnie was already up, bustling around the kitchen. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. He got out of bed and joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Morning, beautiful," he murmured, kissing her neck. Minnie leaned back into him, smiling. "Morning. I made us some breakfast." They ate together, talking about their plans for the day. After breakfast, Juan stepped outside for a morning smoke. Minnie joined him, laughing as she watched him light up. "You know you can flame up inside, right?" she teased. Juan grinned, shaking his head. "I'm not used to that." "It feels weird." They spent the rest of the day lounging around the house, watching movies and enjoying each other's company. Halfway through a movie, Minnie began rubbing Juan's leg in a passionate attempt to woo him. Their kisses quickly escalated into another round of intense lovemaking, their bodies moving together in perfect sync. As the weekend came to an end, they lay in bed, wrapped in each other's arms. Minnie looked up at Juan, her eyes filled with love. "I want you to stay, Juan. I love you, and I want to spend my life with you." Juan felt his heart swell with emotion. "I love you too, Minnie. I want to stay, but I need to find a better job. I want to contribute more." Minnie nodded, understanding his concerns. "We'll figure it out together. You're not alone in this." Chapter 3. As the weekend drew to a close, Juan and Minnie sat down on the couch for a serious talk about their future. The warmth of Minnie's home surrounded them, providing a stark contrast to the tension Juan felt inside. Minnie held Juan's hands, her eyes filled with love and determination. "I want you to stay, Juan. I love you, and I want to spend my life with you," she said, her voice sincere and steady. Juan felt a surge of gratitude and love. He looked into Minnie's eyes, feeling a deep connection. "I love you too, Minnie. I want to stay, but I need to find a better job. I want to contribute more to our life together." Minnie smiled, her eyes glistening with tears of happiness. "We can figure it out together. You're not alone in this." Minnie's house was a bustling hub of activity. Her mother and younger sister lived with her, making space a bit tight. Despite the crowded conditions, they had created a warm family atmosphere that Juan had never experienced before. To give Juan and Minnie more privacy, her mother decided to move into the basement, a gesture that touched Juan deeply. The next day, feeling more settled, Juan returned to his mother's house to gather more of his belongings. As he walked through the front door, he was met with his mother's concerned gaze. She had been waiting for him. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice a mix of worry and curiosity. Juan took a deep breath. "I'm moving in with Minnie for a while, until I find a better job." His mother's expression softened. "That's a good idea, Juan. I want you to succeed. If you need any money for expenses, just let me know." Juan was surprised by her support. He had expected resistance, but instead, she was offering help. He declined her offer, thanking her sincerely for everything she had done for him. They shared a heartfelt goodbye, the kind that hinted at a new understanding between them. Before heading back to Minnie's house, Juan decided to meet up with his friend Carl at the park. They sat on a bench, the familiar smell of weed filling the air as they caught up on life. Carl had exciting news. He had just landed a high-paying job by boosting his resume. As Juan listened, Carl explained how he had embellished his qualifications to secure a managerial position. "Just a few lies here and there," Carl said with a grin. "Nothing a job would typically go and verify." Juan couldn't help but feel inspired. If Carl could do it, why couldn't he? The idea began to take root in his mind. As they parted ways, Juan was already formulating a plan. Back at Minnie's house, Juan decided to try Carl's method. He tailored his resume to fit technical positions, drawing inspiration from Minnie's engineering background. Minnie helped him refine the details, offering her insights and support. After a few hours of intense work, Juan uploaded his new resume and applied to over 50 jobs, feeling a renewed sense of hope and determination. "Let's hope this works," Juan said, hitting the submit button for the last application. Minnie sat beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "It will, Juan. You've got this." Juan smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over him. "Thanks, Minnie. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You're not alone in this," she reminded him, leaning in for a kiss. Chapter 4. The next morning, Juan returned to his CNA job, only to face a brutal day. The facility was in chaos. Residents were still in yesterday's clothes, food was everywhere, and the floors were filthy. His co-workers had called off, and the overnight staff had slept through their shift, leaving Juan to handle the mess alone. Despite the overwhelming situation, Juan tackled the tasks with determination. He cleaned the floors, changed the residents' clothes, and prepared breakfast, all while maintaining a calm demeanor. The residents, though demanding, were fond of Juan and appreciated his efforts. While preparing supper for the residents, Juan's phone rang. It was a recruiter for a field engineer position in downtown Chicago. Juan's heart raced as he agreed to an interview, which would be held virtually. This was the break he had been hoping for. He immediately called Minnie to share the news, his excitement palpable. "Minnie, you won't believe this. I have an interview for a field engineer position," Juan exclaimed, his voice filled with joy. Minnie's voice was filled with pride and happiness. "That's amazing, Juan. I knew you could do it. Come home, I have a surprise for you." When Juan arrived at Minnie's house, he found her in the kitchen, stirring mashed potatoes while wearing nothing but a sheer lace lingerie. The sight of her took his breath away. She looked over her shoulder, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. "Welcome home, babe," she purred, her voice dripping with seduction. Juan walked up to her, his hands sliding around her waist. He could feel the heat radiating from her body. "You look incredible, Minnie." Minnie leaned back into him, her body pressing against his. "I wanted to celebrate your good news." Juan's hands roamed her body, feeling the softness of her skin. He turned her around, lifting her onto the kitchen counter. Their lips met in a fierce, hungry kiss. Minnie's fingers tangled in his hair as she pulled him closer, their bodies pressed together. Juan's hands moved to her thighs, spreading them apart as he kissed his way down her neck. Minnie moaned softly, her breath hitching as his lips found her sensitive spots. Their passion was raw and unrestrained. Juan lifted her off the counter, carrying her to the bedroom. He laid her down on the bed, his eyes devouring her body. They made love with an intensity that left them both breathless. Juan's hands explored every inch of Minnie's body, memorizing the feel of her skin. She responded to his every touch, her body arching and writhing beneath him. Their movements were synchronized, a dance of pure desire. Afterwards, they lay together, their bodies entwined. They smoked a joint, the haze of the marijuana adding to the intimacy of the moment. They talked about their future, sharing their dreams and aspirations. Minnie brought the dinner plates to the bedroom, and they spent the rest of the evening talking and dreaming together, their bond growing stronger with each passing moment. Chapter 5. Juan's virtual interview went exceptionally well. The recruiter, impressed by his confidence and technical knowledge, scheduled an in-person final interview. This was a big opportunity for Juan, and he couldn't contain his excitement. He spent the entire day studying engineering basics, determined to ace the final interview. Minnie was working late, drafting blueprints for a new project. Juan decided to attend a friend's birthday party to unwind. Despite Minnie's initial suspicions about his friend Daisy, she trusted him and wished him a good time. At Daisy's party, Juan ran into old college friends and met new people. The atmosphere was lively, with music blasting and drinks flowing. One girl, Kyla, caught his attention. She approached him, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Hi, I'm Kyla. Mind if I join you?" she asked, smiling warmly. Juan smiled back. "Sure, I'm Juan. Nice to meet you." As they talked, Kyla confided in Juan about her unhappy relationship. "My boyfriend is a compulsive cheater. I don't know what to do," Juan sympathized. "I have a girlfriend too. We're doing well, but it's always important to communicate and be honest with each other." Their conversation remained casual, with no flirting or inappropriate advances. They played drinking games with the group, laughing and enjoying the evening. By the end of the night, Juan felt relaxed and happy. Before heading home, Juan texted Minnie to let her know he was on his way. She didn't respond, so he assumed she was asleep. However, when he arrived, he found Minnie sitting on the porch, smoking and waiting for him. "Hey, babe, why are you still up?" Juan asked, concerned. Minnie looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and curiosity. "Who was at the party? Why didn't you communicate the entire time?" Juan, feeling defensive, tried to brush off her questions. "It was just a party with some friends. Nothing happened." Minnie's expression hardened. "I trust you, Juan, but I need to know what's going on." "I hate being ignored." Realizing how upset she was, Juan softened his tone. "I'm sorry, Minnie. I didn't mean to ignore you. I'll be better about communicating." They went inside, the tension between them easing. They talked about the party, and Juan reassured Minnie of his loyalty. They went to bed, their bond strengthened by their honest conversation. The next morning, Minnie tried to ask Juan about the party again, but he brushed her off. Frustrated, she expressed her feelings. "I hate being ignored, Juan. It makes me feel insecure." Juan sighed, realizing how much he had hurt her. "I'm sorry, Minnie. I promise to communicate better. I love you, and I don't want to lose you." They made up, sharing a tender kiss. The love between them was strong, and they were determined to work through their issues together. Chapter 6. Today was the day of Juan's final interview. He spent the morning refreshing his engineering knowledge, going over notes and practicing potential questions. Minnie wished him luck before heading to work, her support giving him the confidence he needed. Juan arrived at the tech warehouse, a sprawling facility in a suburb outside Chicago. He was greeted by Steve, the lead engineer and recruiter. Steve's firm handshake and welcoming smile put Juan at ease. "Let's see what you can do, Juan," Steve said, leading him to the metrology lab. The lab was filled with state-of-the-art equipment. Steve pointed to an electrical analyzer and asked Juan to demonstrate its functions. Nervous, Juan hesitated, feeling sweat form on his palms. Remembering Carl's advice, Juan decided to ask questions. "Is it okay to power on the analyzer without any adjustments?" he asked, looking at Steve. Steve, surprised by Juan's caution, nodded. "Yes, go ahead." Juan powered on the analyzer and asked for the manual. Steve's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. Juan was the first candidate to ask for assistance, showing a willingness to learn and follow instructions. As they proceeded through the test, Juan asked more questions and took notes, impressing Steve with his thoroughness and attention to detail. By the end of the interview, Steve was convinced that Juan was the right fit for the team. He handed Juan a sticky note with the offer amount, $85,000 a year. Juan's eyes widened in shock. The amount was more than he'd expected. Trying to hide his excitement, he graciously accepted. Steve congratulated him and set up an orientation day, mentioning that a drug screening and background check would be required. As Juan left the facility, his excitement was tempered by a new worry. How would he pass the drug screening? He knew the background check would clear, but his marijuana use was a problem. He reached out to his friend David for help, and David agreed to provide clean urine. The next morning, Juan carefully prepared the urine sample and headed to the testing facility. Upon arrival, he faced a long wait and a rude receptionist. Concerned about the temperature of the urine, Juan sneaked out to buy a baby thermometer and warming packs. After ensuring the urine was at the correct temperature, he returned to the facility. The nurse called his name, and Juan followed her instructions. In the bathroom, he discreetly transferred the urine to the test cup and handed it back to the nurse. To his relief, she found nothing suspicious. Chapter 7. Later that day, Juan received an email from his recruiter congratulating him on passing the screening and providing details for his start date. Elated, he looked forward to his new job and the opportunities it would bring. However, that evening, things took an unexpected turn. Juan and Minnie were celebrating his new job at a small, intimate dinner in their favorite restaurant. The mood was light, filled with laughter as they shared dreams about their future. Suddenly, Juan's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen and saw an unknown number. His heart skipped a beat, an uneasy feeling settling in his stomach. "Who is it?" Minnie asked, noticing his expression. "I don't know," Juan replied, picking up the phone. "Hello? Mr. Juan Morales?" A stern voice on the other end said. "Yes, this is he. This is Detective Ramirez with the Chicago Police Department. We need you to come down to the station for questioning regarding an ongoing investigation." Juan felt the blood drain from his face. "What? What is this about?" "It's regarding a matter that requires your immediate attention. Please come to the station as soon as possible." Juan hung up the phone, his mind racing. Minnie reached out, her face etched with concern. "What's going on, Juan?" He shook his head, trying to make sense of the situation. "I don't know, Minnie. The police want to question me about something. I need to go down to the station." Minnie's eyes widened with worry. "Do you want me to come with you?" Juan nodded, appreciating her support. "Yes, please. I don't know what this is about, but I don't want to face it alone." They quickly paid the bill and left the restaurant, their earlier joy replaced by a heavy sense of dread. As they drove to the police station, Juan's mind raced with possibilities. Was it something from his past? Had someone found out about the fake urine? The uncertainty gnawed at him, making the short drive feel like an eternity. At the station, Detective Ramirez greeted them with a serious expression. "Mr. Morales, thank you for coming. Please follow me." Juan squeezed Minnie's hand before letting go and following the detective. They were led to a small, dimly lit interrogation room. The detective gestured for Juan to sit. "Mr. Morales, we have some questions regarding a recent string of robberies in the area," Detective Ramirez began, sitting across from Juan. "Your name came up during our investigation." Juan's heart pounded in his chest. "Robberies? I don't know anything about Tiat." Detective Ramirez leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "We received a tip linking you to these incidents. We need to know where you were on the nights of the 5th and the th." Juan racked his brain, trying to remember. "I was at home with my girlfriend Minnie, both nights." "You can ask her." The detective nodded slowly, jotting down notes. "We'll need to verify your alibi. Until then, you're not under arrest, but you should stay available for further questioning." Juan left the interrogation room feeling dazed. Minnie, waiting anxiously outside, rushed to his side. "What happened? What did they say?" "They think I'm involved in some robberies," Juan replied, his voice trembling. "I told them I was with you, but they need to verify it." Minnie's face hardened with determination. "We'll get through this one. We'll prove you're innocent." Over the next few days, the police questioned Minnie and checked their alibis. The process was nerve-wracking, and Juan couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The stress weighed heavily on him, affecting his sleep and appetite. One evening, as Juan and Minnie sat on the couch, trying to distract themselves with a movie, his phone buzzed again. It was a text message from an unknown number. "We know the truth. Stay out of it if you know what's good for you." Juan's blood ran cold. He showed the message to Minnie, who looked equally alarmed. "What does this mean?" she whispered. "I don't know," Juan said, his voice barely audible. "But I think someone's trying to frame me." Just then there was a loud knock at the door. Juan and Minnie exchanged worried glances before Juan cautiously approached and opened it. Two men stood on the doorstep, their faces shadowed by the dim porch light. "Juan Morales?" one of them asked, his tone menacing. "Yes," Juan replied, his heart thudding in his chest. "We need to talk," the other man said, stepping forward. Juan felt a surge of fear but stood his ground. "Who are you? What do you want?" "We're the ones who tipped off the police," the first man said, his voice cold. "You were getting too close to something you shouldn't. Consider this a warning." Before Juan could respond, the men turned and walked away, leaving him and Minnie in stunned silence. Shaken, Juan closed the door and locked it, his mind racing. "Juan, what are we going to do?" Minnie asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Juan admitted, feeling a mix of fear and determination. "But I'm not going to let them scare us. We need to find out who's behind this and clear my name." As the threat loomed over them, Juan knew his life had taken a dangerous turn. The stakes were higher than ever, and he was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost.